Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I'm Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Strange by Nathen Ballingrud. This is a book from Saga Press. It came out in 2023. It's a sci-fi western. I listened to this book on Audible and the narrator was perfect. Given the story is of an older woman recounting an event in her youth, her older lady voice and her twang was just great. It really kind of brought you into the story. I actually heard of this book from Sci-Fi 180's channel. I think he reviewed it like last year, and I was like, that sounds awesome. It had been on my TBR for quite a while, and yeah, I saw it on Audible, and I was like, okay, let's do it. A great blend of two quite distinct genres, as well as a throwback to a classic story, while managing to make it something new. The Strange is one strange book. What is it about? 1931, New Galveston, Mars. 14-year-old Annabelle Crisp sets off through the wastelands of the Strange to find Silas Munt's gang, who have stolen her mother's voice, destroyed her father, and left her solely with a need for vengeance. Since Annabelle's mother left for Earth to care for her own ailing mother, Annabelle's days in New Galveston have been spent at school and her nights at her laconic father's diner with Watson, the family kitchen engine and dishwasher, as her only companion. When the silence came and communication shipments from Earth to its colonies on Mars stopped, life seemed stuck in foreboding stasis until the night Silas Munt and his gang attacked. I loved Annabelle. She's the most take no shit young teenager you've ever met, but she's also acting from a state of extreme vulnerability and fear. She manifests this fear in taking action and never giving up, but she also drops into moments where her inexperience and sheer terror over losing the only person she has left comes out. Because of a father she deems to be weak, she has a one-track mind because she's afraid what will happen if she stops to actually consider her fears or actually consider what life would be like if she did things her father's way. She's also grieving the fact that her mother went back to Earth, and then the silence happened, which is basically, as it said in the blurb, communication and shipments and stuff have stopped coming to Mars. So she's essentially like cut off from her mother. She never knows if she's going to see her again. She never knows if she's going to leave Mars because Mars is kind of a shithole. And so she's kind of dealing with these fears as well. And her father, because I guess he sees he's not able to see any hope either, and he misses his wife, is not giving her any sort of comfort or hope. So to combat this whole kind of the pressure, also the pressure of being, 14 years old, all of this compounding onto her, she lashes out and then she chooses this one person to kind of go after. If she thinks if she can take Silas down, get back what he stole, then she'll right her life. And obviously we know as readers that that's not going to happen. And the narrator knows that that's not going to happen. So it's interesting because it's like a coming of age story for Annabelle, but we also kind of experience Annabelle's perspective in that as well. So I thought that aspect, that kind of all of these things kind of being in one person's psyche was really, really well done. When I do read first person, also, I do really prefer the story within a story structure, as long as the narrative structure reinforces the story in some way, which this one totally does. I just wanted, to wrap Annabelle in a hug and tell her that she'll be okay. The other characters were fun. I really liked Watson, Annabelle's service robot, as well as Sally, who is the most badass woman like you've ever heard of. She's mean, she doesn't care, but she also does care secretly. One of those types. And then Joe, who is a drunken former pilot who can't leave Earth because there's no fuel, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. They are the typical Western characters, but with slight sci-fi twists. As I said, Joe is a space pilot, Sally is, well, she's a woman, Watson is a robot. Of course, they start off antagonistically towards one another, but by the end it becomes a sort of a found family, which is kind of what you're looking for in groups like that. The main villain, Silas, is one of those complex villains because at times you can understand his motivations and what he's trying to do, though his methods keep him from being redeemable. So he's a really good villain in that way because you kind of hate him, but you also are kind of like, I kind of get what he's doing, like, you know what I mean? But you're like, oh, but he's such a dick. The world building is the one thing I think people are torn about with this book because it's one that might infuriate you if you're looking for something hard sci-fi. There's no real explanation as to how humanity developed spaceflight in the 30s or how they colonized or terraformed Mars. What I think is that this is supposed to be kind of an homage to the classic, sci-fi that I like to read on my channel. But the really, really classic stuff, like the stuff from the 20s and 30s. What's his name? The the Mars guy. This guy. Yeah, so I think it's supposed to kind of have that concept because in those books they don't really explain this. I mean, those books are technically set in the future for them, which is normally like 1975, but they don't really explain it either. And I think that's kind of where this is coming from. It's kind of like an allusion to that. There is a bit of an explanation at the end. It doesn't really make sense though, like scientifically or technologically, but the setting that we get on Mars, like the way the cities are set up, all of that stuff is quite detailed in terms of like the social structure and also how things work there. The kind of horror aspect that comes in, I'm going to mention in a bit, is makes sense in a way. The most interesting thing about the world building though for me was the idea of the silence. We're left to speculate as to what really happened, which I thought was actually more interesting than being like Earth nuked itself. Like, I thought it was way more interesting that we are in the same, it's mimetic, a word that I love, we're in the same situation as the characters. We don't know why Earth stopped talking with Mars. Could be anything, really. Could be aliens. As I said, the story broaches into horror a little bit with some weirder aspects. It's not really scary horror. It's more just kind of like a bit of body horror. Some creepiness, some mystery. I'm not going to really get into it because, again, it would spoil it. I thought that actually was kind of the weakest part of the story. I didn't think you really even needed that. But it did kind of explain some things. So it worked. It just wasn't my favorite part. The writing, though, was really, really great. I found it was immersive. There was a good mix of descriptive prose. Landscapes are particularly well described in terms of both beauty and desolation. There were some outdated terms, though, for marginalized people that seemed unnecessary to include. Like, if we have spaceflight and colonies on Mars, couldn't we not have progressed past that aspect of social history as well? I don't know. I just found that kind of like, I was kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, there was no, I don't know. There was a bit, something else to do with that in the book, too, that I thought was kind of odd. I don't think we needed those aspects at all. But yeah, I mean, overall, if you suspend your disbelief about the world building in that way, this is a very fun, exciting, immersive story about a young girl on a revenge quest. There are some great shootout scenes. There's some great action scenes. There's some beautiful landscape descriptions. Like, I think this would actually make a really cool movie. I mean, you could also watch True Grit, but this one is True Grit set in Mars. It doesn't fully follow that story though. Like, it's not like it's a True Grit with a sci-fi landscape thrown behind it. It just kind of the idea of the young girl gathering people, going on a quest, kind of the Western setting. That is the true grittiness of it. There's no characters, I don't think, that really compare. Then again, I don't think I've ever read the book, but I have watched the movie, and I watched the remake movie, not the John Wayne one, like, I don't know, 15 years ago? So, or whenever it came out, 10 years ago? So I can't really remember, but, yeah, so I guess I don't know why I'm talking about that. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was great, and I suggest listening to it on Audible or on audiobook because the narration was really, really, honestly, kind of the best part. It was really good. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and